After more than a year, hundreds of messages and calls with publishers, I finally managed to get one, possibly during the worst time for indie devs to get published. In this devlog, I want to share with you all the advice I can, by sharing my journey going from obscurity to getting noticed and signing a publisher. Stick until then if you'd like to know more about my publisher. So it starts with a question. Why would you want to sign with a publisher? It's actually very simple. Either because you need money or because you don't want to handle everything yourself. If you have all the money you need, you can pay for marketing, testing, QA, lawyers, everything. You can basically do everything a publisher can do. But it's a lot of work handling all of this, especially if you're a solo developer like me. So having someone do it can help. Also, a publisher is specialized in this kind of thing and will have more experience than you and a better network to use. Okay, now, let's say you want a publisher. How do you get their attention? That might actually be the hardest step. At first, I did not really want a publisher, so I did not even try to contact one. My plan was to have a very good demo up for Steam Next Fest, and then release the game in self-publishing sometime later. The only marketing I did at the time was posting cool stuff on Twitter, Reddit, etc. I already started receiving mails from publishers. But as I said, I was not interested in getting a publisher at the time, so I would just refuse. You must understand that at the time, I had a pretty negative vision of publishers, and I actually did not really know how they could help. I just saw them as people trying to make money off my creation. Actually, the publisher I signed, they contacted me a long time ago, and at first I thought it was a scam. After the Steam Next Fest, a lot of publishers contacted me. And seeing this growing interest and the scope of my game getting bigger and bigger, I decided it wouldn't hurt to at least listen to them. I did a lot of talking through mails and calls, and I learned a lot about how publishers could actually help me. I decided it was time to contact my favorite publishers. To do this, I needed a pitch deck, which is a document describing your game, as well as the target audience, your budget, this kind of stuff. Devolver actually shares a very cool tutorial directly on their website. The link to the tutorial and to my pitch deck is in the description. I sent my pitch deck to about 15 publishers, and I received one refusal and one reply from Devolver, which ended up being also refused. Not a big success. So let's just make a list of the few things you need to do to grab the publisher's attention. Make a vertical slice of your game. Basically, a very good demo that contains a tiny part of your game, but with almost the final quality. It's easier for publishers to bet on something playable and that looks like a game than grey boxes or some ideas on paper. They can also see if influencers and players already like it. You're basically reducing risk for them, and that's gonna help a lot during the negotiations. The drawback is obviously that you have to commit a lot of time on creating that vertical slice, with no certainty that you'll get a publisher. Second thing, create interesting things to share on the social networks. I have a preference for Reddit and X, because that's where most game devs and influencers are. You're really not trying to get to players here, you want to get to publishers, and they are on those platforms looking out for games. Participate in as many events as you can. You can get a notification anytime there is an event going on the How to Market a Game Discord. I leave a link in the description. I also know about a paid version that is, I think, worth it. Last thing, create a pitch deck and send it to publishers. Contacted publishers directly did not work well for me, but you will need the pitch deck anyway. I would say not to rush it and wait a little before sending your pitch deck. If they contact you first, you'll be in a stronger position during the negotiation and you'll know that they are interested. and that they're not gonna waste your time. So now you have maybe one or several publishers that contacted you. What's next? At this stage, you might be only talking to a scout. Scout's job is to find good games to publish. So don't get your hopes up, because it really does not mean anything. It's just that scout find the game interesting, but not the publisher itself. The scout will have to convince the publisher that it's a good game to be published. Generally, the first step will be an introduction call or mail. They will present themselves, talk about what they like about your game, and ask you to talk about you, your studio, your game. That's also when they're gonna ask about your pitch deck. Or they will directly ask you questions about your budget, when are you planning to release, what's the complete game playtime. I was really not prepared at the time. I didn't even have a pitch deck. So I would always avoid the question about budget and planning, or I would just reply something different every time. If you like the video so far, give it a like. So how to establish your budget as a solo developer? There's no one way to do it. The way I did it is I took my last salary and compared it to the average salary here in France before taxes, and then I multiplied it by 2, and I multiplied it again by the number of months I thought I would need to complete the game. It's gonna sound like a lot, especially because if you're alone working on your game, on your time and stuff, but no, it's really not. Big teams cost way more. Like even a five-man studio is gonna cost way more than you alone. So no worries. Yeah, so it's also a very good time, this introduction call, for you to ask questions about them. For example, I asked if they already worked with solo developers before. How much they are involved in the design process, this kind of interesting things. I will link in the description all the questions the publishers asked me, my replies to them, and also the questions that I asked them and their reply. So you had this introduction call, and later they contacted you to let you know that they are still interested in publishing your game. That's when you will receive an offer, also called heads of terms. And it's already negotiation time. The offer is a short document that focuses on the key points of the contract to make the negotiation faster. It's not the complete contract. It allows us to agree on the most important thing before going into the details of the contract. You don't want to put too much time into a contract if you're not even sure you agree on the most important things, right? Here are a few things you want to look for in the first offer. The terms, or the duration of the contract, is usually going to be between 5 to 10 years and automatically renewed. Some will ask for eternity, which obviously refuse. And then the publishing territories and platforms, usually worldwide and on every existing and not existing yet platforms. Of course, the royalty rate, are also called revenue share. It's usually defined as the recoup cost, or ROI, the amount of money the publisher puts into the game, basically. What every publisher is going to do is take the bigger share of the revenues until they get back their money. And then they will take the smaller share. This is a point where you're going to negotiate a lot. I saw during negotiation rate that just because I said no, I'm going to go with someone else, they would reduce the rate by half. Like by half. They would take half less money. If they give you a lot of money, they're going to ask for a bigger rev share because they're taking more risk. So what you can expect the most is 90-10 before the first recoup. So 90% of the revenues for them, 10% for you. And then 30 for them, 70 for you after they recoup. I've seen a lot of 100 before recoup, like you get nothing. And then 50-50 when they have the money back. And then when they have the money back a second time, then you get 70. I did not talk to publishers who just wanted to fund the marketing, but not the development. But they would usually take a way smaller share, something like 20%, almost like a PR. The last thing you want to take a look at is the funding, obviously. Publishers will usually separate the funding in several categories. First, the development fee, the money for you to make the game. Then the localization fee, the money to translate the game into other language. Then the marketing fee, so to pay things like influencers, ad, marketing assets, events, all of this. And the QA fees, to pay for testing and stuff. Those numbers will vary vastly depending on your game and your team size. But just for context, here are some numbers I've been proposed. So for example, a long time ago, one of the first publishers I talked to proposed me $6,000. And the last offers I got by the start of this year got until $250,000 to $300,000. So yeah, as you can see, it can vary vastly, and it can change obviously during, my game 1 year ago was not the same my game right now. So how to negotiate the offer? I think the most important thing is to show confidence and grit. It's not the time to be humble or doubt yourself. Act as if you did not need them. Even if you do, if they want a piece of the pie, they also have to convince you. Ask what you want to have. Don't give up what you want to keep, okay? Don't accept the first offer you get. I know it is tempting because you're afraid you're never gonna have another one and you're so happy that someone will give you money. But please, take as much time as you can to compare the offers, and best scenario possible, you get them into a bidding war. You tell one, yeah, this one offered me this, so that publisher will improve the rate or something. That's the best scenario. Anytime a new publisher contacted me, I would just tell them the best offer I got so far. They either leave, match the offer, or make a better one. A publisher actually doubled the funding of my best offer at some point, so really, you're gonna have some surprises. Keep them on their toes, but don't go too far. Be respectful, don't waste their time, and stay yourself. Show them that you're gonna be a cool person to work with and that you're excited to work with them. So what's my rev share and funding? I can't tell you because I signed an NDA, but I can tell you I'm really happy about it. I think it's fair. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think my publisher is great. It's very indifferently. It's trying to change things and trying new, innovative things. Yeah, I'm very lucky to start publishing games with them. If this kind of video interests you, consider subscribing to see more and to support me. Okay, now let's say you both agreed on the heads of terms. Now it's time to negotiate the details of the contract. This is usually at this point that the publisher is gonna ask you to sign an NDA to make sure you don't share their confidential info on the internet. Basic stuff. And yeah, there's one thing you'll definitely need. A lawyer. Objection! I know. Lawyers are expensive, and this is scary. But it's definitely worth it, believe me. Let's list a few advantages of having a lawyer. You now have an ally on your side. Believe me, if you're a solo developer, it's going to be very important to have an ally. They will make sure that the contract is perfectly legal, which is important. They will make sure you're well protected, so you can sleep better at night. They will explain the legal stuff to you so you can understand and make more informed decisions. They will also help you negotiate the contract better. They offer advice and wisdom because they have experience signing contracts like this. You can actually hire them directly for the heads of terms, but since they are not cheap, I didn't do that. I really waited until I was pretty sure I wanted to sign, and then I hired a lawyer to make sure everything was good. So let's list a few things you want to be careful about in the contract. Make sure you really are the sole owner of the IP. Even if the contract states it's yours, it does not mean the publisher can't use it however they want. I've seen deals where publishers do not own the IP, but still has the rights to use it without needing my approval to make sequels, prequels, etc. Publishers can also sublicense their rights to other companies. Sometimes it makes sense, for example, to distribute your game in China, but sometimes it does not. Don't let them sell your rights. Be sure to ask that they need your approval to do those things. Check the exit clauses. Those clauses basically define what happens when one of the party exits the contract one way or another. For example, if the publisher exits the contract without proper reason, make sure you still get the funding and that you don't have to refund them. Also make sure that the exit clause, in case you breached the contract, for example, if you don't finish the game in time, is not asking too much of you. One thing I saw often is that you have to refund them only if you actually release the game. So let's say you don't finish the game, you don't release anything, you don't have to refund them, which is very cool. Check out the platforms. Publisher will want to have all publishing rights on current and future platforms. Which sounds really bad, right? You can negotiate this. I asked a first right of refusal. Talk about this with your lawyer. But basically it's a standard clause that you can use to basically promise that if you want to publish the game on a new platform, you have to propose to them to publish it first, and only if they accept, you have to go with them. But if they don't accept, you can do it with someone else. This way, both you and the publisher have control and are sure to not miss a good opportunity. You don't get the whole funding money right after signing the contract. You and the publisher must make a planning composed of milestones. For each milestone, you promise things that will be done in the game, and they promise to give you some amount of the funding money. There's a link in the description if you'd like to check out the milestone for Dawnfolk. Don't be afraid to ask what you want, even if it's a bit unusual. For example, I asked to keep full publishing rights on itch.io, Patreon, and Ko-fi, which I think is important because I want to stay independent, okay? Obviously, it's not a huge deal because it's not gonna sell a lot on itch.io, but still. Okay, so I promised you I would talk a little bit about my publisher. I'm psyched to tell you that I'll be working with Astrological. You might not know them, because they're still quite new to publishing games, but they do have a lot of experience funding games. And they do have a strong vision about the games they want to publish, and you can tell they really care about indies. They really want to be a different publisher. I'm really happy about this. Like, they make sure developers stay independent even though they are published, and that's awesome. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have tons of questions because I actually removed a lot of things from my script so that it fits in the video, because there's just so much things to talk about. So please, if you have questions, ask them in the comments and I do my best to reply, okay? Thank you for watching till the end, and a big thank you to my supporters on Patreon who makes those type of video possible, because it takes a lot of time. If you'd like to learn more about publishers, you should take a look at my last devlog, where I talk about my discussions with a legendary publisher, Devolver. So I see you there. The goal is to experiment what's game feel and how you can improve game feel in a game. And I just want to take a look, I didn't look at it yet. I just want to take a look at it live with you guys.